Welcome to the Heart Path Podcast. I'm your host, Yvonne Ellis. The Heart Path Podcast spotlights authors, changemakers, nature lovers, and creators of all kinds. Each of our podcasts aim to share interviews and stories of beauty, resilience, and inspiration for all.
Ode to the Clefted Stone. At 8, I saw a whole heart in the toilet. I screamed for my mother, who laughed, flushed, and said one day the same would come from you. I snuck her compact to see how this could be true. I confess, I haven't always loved you. I outsourced sex to you, then hated you for it. I suffered the gulf between us. Wonder how to honor you. Near my birthplace, when a friend's daughter began her menses, her family led a 4-day ceremony. On the second day, she ran the length of a canyon to know her own strength. Oh, plum, guarded cave, valley in the shadow of 2 peaks, you are a mystery. Maybe we could start over. I want to float in the channel between us, wash up on your shores, make my home in your folds. I want to be swallowed whole and never emerge. I want you to devour me like a glutton with the last truffle, like a drowning man sucks air.
Wow. Cheryl, thank you so much for reading, and thank you for being here with me on the Heart Path Podcast.
I'm so excited, Yvonne.
So excited too. Thank you. We are here to celebrate your new book. Can you tell us about this new book and everything that went into this process?
Yes, this is my first book of poetry, and it's called The Seduction of the Daughter in 15 Pieces. I did not start writing poetry until 5 years ago. I did not think of myself as a writer. In my family, the story was, we're good at math, we're not good at writing. Don't worry if you don't do well in English. So that was what I grew up with and brought into my adult life. I just had never even imagined writing. But with my work doing wilderness guiding and trips in nature, in 2020, I was holding space and creating a container for people going out on a wilderness solo. And I had 4 days with my base camp team to support them. And this writing just kept on coming in. And I was like, I think this might be a poem, but I'm actually not sure. Like, I didn't read poetry. It wasn't in my bones or anything. So I just started following that path and trusted source and spirit or the universe enough to know this wouldn't just be coming in randomly. So I started my MFA program wanting to write nature poems because I love nature so much. I mean, it's just been so healing for me. And I got into the program and essentially only wrote poems about my childhood traumas. And it was so hard. It was not what I was expecting. Like, I'd done therapy and I was like, why is this stuff all coming back to be like chewed up and digested in a different way? And now I have to write about it and share it. What is happening? But we had such amazing teachers at Western Colorado that just really encouraged me to trust the poem and really trust what wanted to come out from the writing rather than try to write nature poetry and work against myself. So I just followed that. And, you know, a lot of the poems that I wrote were really hard for me to work with, and they're hard to read because they essentially deal with the challenge of growing up with a mom with mental illness and the challenge of sexual violence. And neither one of those was one that I had talked about much with my friends or strangers at a poetry reading who now I'm bearing my soul to. And I had no idea what to expect once I put the book together and then started sending it out. I loved putting the book together. That was such a creative act, figuring out, well, what story am I telling here? What's the story arc? What are some of the themes that I want to be calling out? And I was really surprised by how much that could change by the specific poems and also the order. So it was a crazy time graduating from the program. I did my best. I sent it out, and I feel like I got incredibly fortunate to have a publisher want to publish it. And then here we are.
Woohoo! You were able to not only do the hard work of creating this book and making this something that you can share with others that have been through the same thing as a healing testimony. I am grateful that you didn't give up and that you made it happen, because it's not easy to write into topics like these. And so I'm wondering how you allow this to come onto the page.
Well, I hadn't been back in academia for a long time. And honestly, I was a little terrified about like deadlines and papers and sharing. And I got into that habit of writing every day and just being like, okay, I have no idea what's coming out. But, they talk a lot about the muse and to actually have your butt in the chair in order for the muse to show up. So I was able to develop that daily practice. After I finished the book, I took 2 years off. It was so exhausting. I gave everything I could give, and now I need to replenish. I've started writing again, and it feels really good. But yeah, the hard poems, especially the ones about my mom, she had died recently. And so honestly, I think that was part of the divine timing. I'm not sure I could have written so honestly about my childhood with her and how hard it was if I thought, oh, she's going to read this.
I get it. So what's the muse telling you now?
The muse is just like, trust whatever you're writing. Like, you don't even have to write poems. Just sit down and write for 10 minutes or sit down and write for 20 minutes. So she's being really gentle with me, which I'm grateful for. During the time when I wasn't writing, quote unquote, I was reading voraciously. So I would get all these books of poetry out of the library. And I remember one of our teachers being like, you don't even have to be writing to be a poet. It's like a sensibility and a mindset and a heart set. And so I would try to remind myself of that. I was really drinking it in. And then I also started working with my dreams, working with the subconscious, which is where the muse likes to hang out anyway. So I feel like I was cultivating that side of me to tap into things more easily, even if I wasn't technically creating poetry.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm wondering, before you started your MFA, did you do any kind of journal writing, anything like that beforehand?
I did. That's a good point. I've been a big journaler, so that helps. Part of me thinks it's this physical motion of writing with the pen. I've never been one to write on my phone or on the laptop until I've written by hand. So for me, at least, it's that embodiment of like, okay, she's sitting down. She has something in her hand. There's a piece of paper there that's telling my system something's happening. We don't know whether it's a dream or a journal entry or a poem, but she's doing something.
Yes, yes. When did you start journal writing?
It was tied to getting connected to nature and my spiritual awakening that happened in nature maybe 18 years ago. I think it was a way for me to try to figure out what the hell was happening to me with this new way of approaching life. That's something that has just been a really close friend.
That's beautiful. So I'm wondering about this spiritual awakening in nature and how this came about.
It was probably almost 20 years ago at this point. I had 2 little kids at home, running a business with my husband, Peter, and I was invited to go on a retreat with some Ojibwa leaders who were fire keepers in their tribe up in northern Michigan that a friend was organizing. And I'd been born on the Dene Reservation out in Arizona. And so there was always some part of me that was like, well, that was kind of interesting. I wonder what that was about. And on that retreat, I got a calling or a download or some deep knowing that I needed to do this type of wilderness work with women and kids. My friend was doing it with business people. I really respect that. He thought, let's change the leaders. But in the end, the business people would all leave their companies and try to do something spiritual, which is good. But everybody was like, I'm out. I'm leaving this capitalist nightmare. So for me, it was working with women. And that was the first time I had camped as an adult. I had no experience, zero. I have a deep connection to nature. But it was just so clear. I, of course, ignored it like people often do when they get a calling. And then a couple months later, I got it again, like, you are a bridge. It just came through so clearly. And I talked to these Ojibwe friends and they were like, yeah, you kind of need to follow that. We'll help you. But don't go ignoring spirit when spirit knocks really hard like that. So I started putting together these week-long journeys. At first, because I had kids at home, I created family journeys. And so that made it work. And we would do one a year. And it was a blast, catching frogs and canoe tipping and all sorts of things in Northern Michigan. And then at one point, I thought, oh, maybe I should go back to my birthplace and go to Dene land and just see what it feels like. And I've come to see it as the land claimed me on that trip. And I was like, okay, we have to move out here. I need to work here. I don't understand this, but it was another one of those direct knowings where it was like, yeah, don't fight this. So I uprooted my whole family, moved to Santa Fe from Chicago, and started doing more programs out here, especially in Canyon de Chelly, which is a heart place for me that keeps on opening up and sharing more gifts every time I bring a group there.
So is that the first place that you took a group when you moved to Santa Fe?
Yep. Yeah, it was.
And what kind of work were you doing out there?
I mean, to be honest, when I started, I didn't really know. I was just, I'm all into honesty and like being like, I had no freaking idea. I was just like, okay, this is beautiful land. So at the very least, people are going to love being in that land. And we had these amazing Dene guides who worked with us and shared stories. And so I knew it was really powerful. But it's not been until the last few years that it's become clear. And now I'm doing 2 programs a year. And one is wilderness solos there for 24 hours overnight on your own. It's a real confidence builder, but it's also, as I know, from being out in the wilderness on your own, like you get to look at a lot of stuff that maybe you don't look at in your life. And so it gives people that safe container in which to do it. And then the other is around healing sexual violence against women. And so I'm taking a group of women in a few months. And the land is just really clear about what it wants to have happen there. Part of it is for healing this feminine wound that is in all of us, whether we're male or female bodied, or however we identify. It's that wounded feminine that has been there for thousands of years that wants to heal and be released. I think the canyon is a beautiful place to do it because that was also the site of barbaric murder of Dene people in the 1860s with Kit Carson and removal of Indigenous people off their land. So it's healing both directions. That's one thing I've really come to see, that it is healing the land. It's healing the wounds that we bring. And it's just good, important for like our times now. If there are more and more of us who heal our own wounds, that helps the collective.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you so much, Cheryl, for following your heart to where it needed to go and continuing to do that with your writing, with your practices, and with bringing people into wilderness and helping them to let go and to heal their wounds as well. I truly believe that we can't help anyone heal their wounds unless we have done that work ourselves. So thank you for doing that work. I know it's not easy. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thanks, my friend, for seeing it.
Yeah, of course, I do. Do you have a trip coming up soon?
I do. This one with the women in the canyon for healing is in mid-May. And then we do the wilderness solo in October. And then we'll have one in the summer in the forest outside Santa Fe around Wild Joy, which is going to be connecting to awe and wonder. And I know in a future podcast, you'll have my work partner, Larry Glover, who wrote a book called Wild Joy. So, he just goes into so many experiences that he's had in his lifetime of connecting to nature, but also how can each of us be more in that place of wild joy?
Yes, please. You have online readings coming up. How can people find those readings?
Yeah, thanks. One is Sunday, February 15th at 10 a.m. Mountain, and the other is Wednesday, February 18th at 6 p.m. Mountain. And we'll include the links to them in your show notes. It'll be Larry reading from his book, Wild Joy, me reading from The Seduction of the Daughter in 15 Pieces. And, he and I have been working together for 13 years now in the wilderness work. And it just, was beautiful serendipity that we both have new books out at the same time. And for each of us, it's our first book. They're definitely different. His is a memoir. He has a lot of poetry in it too. Mine's a book of poetry. And we were thinking of what are some of the common themes, and healing trauma in nature is definitely a big one. And then also how writing is a healing act, because writing is part of the healing. And that's what I didn't know at the time. But now looking back, I can really see that. And so, talking about that embodied writing, but also working with it on the page as something that's separate. And then editing. I didn't know how much I love to edit, but I really love to edit. And there's a way in which I can then look at this really painful thing that I wrote, but be like, oh, what other word could I use there? Or is this necessary? Cut that out. And so it places it outside me. Because I think part of what happens with trauma is it feels like it's so embedded and it's never going to leave us, but we can actually work with it out of our bodies. And that's kind of how it felt when the book was published. As soon as I got the email from the publisher saying, we're live, you can order it online, I immediately felt like the presence of the book as an ally next to me. It was so weird. It was not at all what I was expecting. I don't know what I was expecting. I mean, I figured I'd be so happy, but it was more like, oh, yeah, now there's this thing that I can give people who I know, people who I don't know, that is an ally in this work. I don't have to do it by myself.
Your book is a gift. Thank you for writing it. Thank you so much. Can we talk a little bit about the organization that you work with Larry at and what you do together?
Yes, it's called Lead Feather, leadfeather.org. We basically have a real passion for helping people get more deeply connected to their authentic selves by being in nature and having nature hold whatever needs to be held. I mean, nature is the best partner. Honestly, I feel like my job is almost done when we get there, and after that, it's all going to evolve. And yeah, I do a lot of stuff, but the power of the land to work with us and to help bring whatever needs to be brought to each person has been mind-blowing for me. Just my own personal experience with it. And then watching other people in a short period of time, 4 or 5 days, the community that gets built, the knowing, that inner knowing that comes in, it helps everyone for sure. But maybe because I am female-bodied, I can relate a lot to the women who carve out this time for themselves with their families, kids, work, spouse, you name it, and see themselves in a new way. Has been really, really powerful. I think both Larry and I would say we do this work because we love it. Also, it changes us every time. I've had people reflect back to us that we come at it different than other outdoor guides, quote unquote, who maybe they're more like hard skill based or they're like clearly in the facilitator role. And when Larry and I are with a group, yes, I'm facilitating. Yes, I'm holding space. I've learned how to hold that container and all that. But my heart is in there as much as anybody else's heart. And like whatever I'm going through is on that table too. So it just gives people a lot of permission to be like, oh yeah, we're all going through this together. And I'm not some freak alone here. I like to show my vulnerability, which was also something I had to learn. I didn't know how to do that initially. I had a lot of perfectionism. I still do. I see my perfectionistic parts come up all the freaking time. But at least I can work with them now and be like, okay, let's stand back a little bit. We don't have to be perfect. That brings so much ease and joy.
Yeah, it's important. I'm interested in hearing a little bit about your work with vulnerability and how you allowed yourself to be vulnerable.
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm trying to think back to where it started. I'll go back to Northern Michigan with a couple of Ojibwa leaders, a man who was an Oneida, and one of their teachings was really around sharing and what it meant to share authentically. And so they'd use an eagle feather and pass it around. And when you had the feather, you got to speak and nobody would tell you to stop or hurry up or anything like that. It was so beautiful. And they really focused on whatever is coming up is what needs to come up. Stop trying to think about what you should say and listen to your heart and what it needs to say. Because you might have no idea why you're telling the story about your childhood or sharing something, but somebody in the circle needs to hear it. And it's not your job to figure it out or even to know. So it's this deep trust in the way spirit moves to just show up. And so I started trusting that that was true and that I could share what was in my heart and the world didn't fall apart. So, you get these reflections back and I've had people say, I know why you needed to share that. That was for me. I really needed to hear what you said. And yeah, working with Larry, he was so vulnerable right from the start. It kind of scared me. And he was like, this is who I am. This is everything that you're going to find out about me. I'm just going to tell you right now. And he and I are very different in terms of our communication style and decision making and kind of drove each other crazy for the first couple of years, but worked through all of that just from a really trusting and vulnerable place. It's almost like the work kind of demanded that I look at all my shadow parts too and just be okay with it. To do it in partnership was really helpful. I honestly don't know how anybody does this kind of work on their own. It just feels really beautiful to be able to hold other people's stuff and have other people hold me. And then I started bringing it into my marriage, my family, and then that shifted, that piece too in such a beautiful way because, we had a good relationship, but we weren't necessarily sharing as deeply as we do now. So I see that ripple effect in my marriage, which has been wonderful.
Wow. Thank you for explaining that. And thank you for sharing your vulnerability with us today. Thank you so much. I'm wondering if you by chance have one more poem you'd like to share before we go.
Oh, thanks for asking. I'll bring it up. Okay. Wild turkeys. At first, the flock looks like a pack of raccoons, heads down, pecking at the ground, roly-belly bodies meandering the meadow. Except those masked mammals don't travel in herds, and the sun has yet to set. These birds stretch 3 feet, beak to tail, sleek with brown and black feathers, fleshy pink necks bump back and forth like young men cruising, fists pumping, chins jutting to the beat. One opens its cavernous wings to hop a little faster. Two echo, then the rest, a brief wave, more show than force, like the ancient scream stuck in my throat. From a moment when it might have mattered, hand over mouth, knees on arms. Now it serves as vestige, body memory from when I could fly.
Woo! Thank you for sharing today. Thank you for the work that you're doing with others to help with healing in this world. It's so important right now for us to heal ourselves and to be part of community with one another. And I love the work that you're doing outside with Earth. And I just feel like it's so powerful that you are out there making a difference in this world. Thank you, Cheryl, for everything.
Oh, thank you so much, Yvonne. It's been such a pleasure to share this with you today, to read a few poems. I'm so grateful for your enthusiasm, and thanks for this beautiful podcast and putting so much love out there in the world. We really need it.